My name is Saul, and I have been buying, selling, trading cars since I was 15 years old. This project I wanted to talk about is a 560 SEC. I've been working on this car for about 4 months now. I bought it from a guy in New York who was actually in New Jersey and was sort of a shady character, but the car was legitimate. It came from a lady in North Jersey who owned it for 20 some years. It was serviced at an independent shop who took good care of the car and was done properly. I went and met the owner of the shop to find out more information about the car, which he gave me, shared with me. The car sat for about 3 or 4 years, so at that point it sort of went into a little bit of disrepair. And that's where I kind of came in. I bought the car at that point. He was asking all kinds of crazy money for the car. It looked fair from the outside. It had a lot of issues that needed to be attended to, but the seats were really nice, the dash was very nice, and the whole car was really together and no rust was the most important thing that I was looking for on this car, which is a big problem with these cars, and because the panels are big, the bodywork can be extensive when you're dealing with one of these cars with rust. So there's not a lot of, I haven't seen a lot of content on YouTube about 560 SECs. I think there's a lot of interest in this car. It's going to become something special. I've built a lot of cars in the past. I had a lot of these cars back in the day and always loved this car. To this day, it still drives like a modern car. I just had a CL63, which I sold, and this car can keep up with that car in terms of looks and suspension and things like that, not performance at all. What I'd like to talk to you about today and share with you is what we did on the suspension of this car to get it to where it's at now. This is one of the very important issues of this car to identify. A lot more videos coming up about the garage, which you'll see briefly, and more about this car in particular. And today we're going to talk mostly about the suspension, which I'm going to back it out right now and show you guys around the car. So I'm going to go over a little bit of what we've done to the suspension so far to get it to where it is now, and the mods we made to get it to where it is now. When I got this car, the suspension was completely gone. There was no fluid in the reservoir. This car has hydraulic rear suspension, which is a little bit complicated. It can be complicated only because nobody knows how to work on it. Nobody's seen it in years, and there's really nobody left who has worked on it. That being said, even driving it home and driving it the way it was like that till I was able to start working on it, it actually drove well. The suspension was great. The front end has new Bilsteins, and a partial lower front end rebuild. So since there's no modern technology in this car, everything has to be just kind of diagnosed and changed out and figured out as you go. So the first course of action was to fix the suspension that was there. So first we drained all the fluid out, and the accumulators looked pretty new, so we sort of left them. There was a leak in the lower high pressure line of the pump for the suspension, the hydraulic pump. So we replaced that. We filled it up with fluid, and still it was working, but not really. It wasn't lifting on its own under pressure in the back, and it was there. What happens with these cars is it sounds like there's a dead man in the trunk, they call it. So there was still a bang over bumps. It was a little bit better than it was in the beginning, but it was still not good. And I also have another car of this era with the same suspension, a 500E. The only way to really fix this problem is just to go fix everything. So the accumulators were about 10 years old, so I figured they were good, but we ended up putting new shocks in the back, because that's the painful part, because they're real expensive, and new hydraulic shocks, new accumulators, and basically a whole brand new system. As soon as I did that, the suspension was unbelievable. It worked perfect, no noise in the back. It's amazing. Okay, so once we got the suspension back to stock form and functioning properly and working really good, the next course of action was to lower the car. There's not really many of these cars around that I've seen in this area. Anyway, we're in the East Coast, Philadelphia area, that are lowered. You see, I guess, a lot of them on the West Coast and things like that, but not too many around here. There's a lot of mixed information online about how to lower the cars, the right proper heights, and you know, everybody has, I guess, their own idea. But we decided to use H&R Springs, which I thought was a good fit, and one of the only ones that I really saw out there, honestly, too. Secondly, this car has what's called spring pads. So there's different size spring pads, and they're measured in millimeters and height. So they go from 1 to 4 in numbers. In stock form, there was a 3 in the back and a 4 in the front. So we went from that to a 2 in the back and a 1 in the front. That gives it this raked look that it has, which I think looks really great. Even though the car is in stock form at this point, other than the suspension, it looks a little bit menacing. Once we get the proper wheels on here, which is really, that's almost a video in itself. So the other thing that's unique to this car that I touched on earlier is the hydraulic rear suspension, which is also adjustable. So besides lowering the car, and you get the front is obviously not adjustable, but once you get the car lowered, you can play with that rear end a little and get the exact height that you want and rate. Right now, I think it seems to be at a good place. It's higher in the back. It's much lower in the front. That's what I was looking for. I wanted the car to look classy but yet menacing, which I think we've achieved at this point. There's so many other things, mods we have in mind for this car going down the road that we're going to do. It's just going to be incredible. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next video.